What do you do when a friendship with a woman you love start to feel different? And you didn't know whether to hold on, speak up, or quietly pull back. In this episode of Galactic Alchemy, we talk honestly about sisterhood, the messy, beautiful shifts, and how to set boundaries without losing yourself or each other.
Welcome to our Galactic Alchemy podcast.
Whether we are exploring intuition, healing, or higher guidance, you are invited to tune in, not just with your ears, but with your heart and your energy.
I'm Anita, and I work with soul-aligned leaders, visionaries, and healers to restore energetic coherence, awaken truth, and reconnect to the intelligence of the heart.
I'm Azriena, and with my soul alchemy modality, I guide people in multidimensional soul integration, clearing timelines, transmuting distortions, and reclaiming their own unique soul gifts.
This podcast is a space for deep connection, for attuned conversations that clear distortion, awaken soul gifts, and return us to the frequency of who we really are.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Galactic Alchemy. So right now we're just about to wrap up the first quarter of 2026. It's been a momentous, fast-paced year which has also caught a lot of people by surprise with its plot twists or the demands that we feel is made on us in terms of the choices we have to make and the decisions we have to stick to. Anita, how has it been? It sounds like you've had quite a big week and that you may have some very pertinent things to share with our audience. What are some of the bigger observations you've had in the last week?
Hi, Az. I've had a lot of clients and women reaching out to me in the last week and talking about sisterhood, falling out with sisters, friendships, dealing with women who are on a different frequency and who may not understand the energy that's coming in. And people are asking me for more and more tools to ground their energy. And the truth is, we were just talking about this. The tools that used to work aren't strong enough anymore. You've got to really double down on your practices. Make sure that you're drinking plenty of water, making sure that you are not saying yes to events where the energy is going to be whippy, demanding, toxic, or misaligned for your heart. So really starting to be mindful about how you show up and where you're showing up, making sure you're getting your supplements and your vitamins and making sure that you're taking good care of yourself and getting plenty of sleep, because there's a tsunami of energy coming in. And for this next 6 months, there's a chance that things are really going to ramp up. Then it's so important now to see this period as almost like a gestational period where it's time to feather your nest, really take good care of yourself. If you're moving or if you're thinking of changing countries, making sure that all of your plans are in place, you're paying attention to the details, and you're mindful of where it is that you want to be. Because this gestational period, if you think of it as a pregnancy, the next 6 months are so important. This is going to change your life. And the decisions that you make and the alignment that you prioritize is really going to determine the outcome for you. Recognize that whatever's going on in the news needs to be processed through the lens of, I am safe, where I am is safe.
So I'll take us back a bit to what you were saying at the start about female clients coming forward and talking about, the falling out of friendships and maybe even the disintegration of long-term relationships, right? It's so timely you said that. It was literally yesterday morning as I was sitting down with my husband having our morning coffee, and I told him that I read this somewhere, so I will not claim credit for it. It's not that original on my end. But I read somewhere where they say, throughout life, we have been prepared to deal with relationship breakups when it comes to romantic relationships. But very few of us have been trained or have learned to deal with friendship breakups. And it's the reality of life, actually, right? I mean, get to a certain point in your life and you can look back and see how many friends have fallen away, how many friendships have come to a natural end. Some ended through toxic or more hurtful circumstances, and some just kind of naturally dissipated. So I was telling my husband, I say, yeah, like we haven't been trained to expect that. And sometimes it's harder to deal with than actual romantic breakups, because, you know, kind of growing up, you think, oh, you've had a love interest, a love relationship, things fizzle out. But when it comes to actual friendships, it's not that easy. And maybe especially with female friendships, because there's just been so much intimate sharing around that. But I was also saying this is the path of life, isn't it? When we have outgrown a situation, a place, a relationship, a friendship, we are always going to end up having to leave it because the frequency match is not there anymore. So it's either we outgrow each other or we grow apart.
Such a good point, because we go into these friendships thinking that these people are wonderful and this relationship's going to last forever. And then we start to even think of them as being sisters, and we create sisterhoods amongst our friends. And I don't know about you, but my sister and I, great friends, and then we're not great friends, and then we're great friends again. And the reason you survive is you've just known each other your whole life. But these friendships, when we begin to treat each other like sisters, there are those moments where we're not always treating each other that well. And the expectations from a sister are far more rigorous than an expectation from a friendship. And when we impose those regulations on our friends, they don't always respond well. And sisters are so forgiving, whereas friendship can be really conditional. And people want to be friends, but they expect a little give and take and a little flexibility. In sister relationships, the truth is there's not always a lot of flexibility. So there's a lot of laying down the law and just expecting you to just fall into line and do what you're meant to do, because you all understand the hierarchy within the family and the idea that blood is thicker than water. So we're all going to continue to show up no matter what. I think what's interesting as well is I'm speaking to people who are talking about the sustainability of the sisterhood with their own sisters within their own families, and that they're beginning to insist on boundaries with their siblings. And I think that's an interesting thing, because if you grew up in the last 20 or 30 years, boundaries with your siblings weren't really a thing. You all knew the relationship. Yeah. So the idea of having a boundary with your sister was unheard of previously. Whereas I'm hearing more women, particularly in their 40s and 50s, who are saying, oh no, I've had to put a boundary in place with my sister because I just felt that I wasn't being appreciated, or I was being manipulated, or something like that, whatever it is for you. I think it's excruciatingly painful when a sister lets you down, when a sister is in a position to hurt your feelings. And the one thing we don't tend to do with our sisters is toughen up our hearts and not let them hurt us. The truth is, we tend to keep our hearts soft with our sisters. So that requires trust. We're living in a society now where there's so many demands, people have so many expectations, and that trust is often violated. So I have seen situations with sisters who are really competitive. They're working in the same field and they clearly love each other, but over the years, there appears to be just a loss of trust and respect. And I think that comes from that expectation that you're just going to continually show up. It's interesting how the competition starts to drive a wedge between sisters. It's surprising to me how many women in their 50s are saying, oh, I don't speak to my sister anymore. I've had to step back from that relationship and have a rest because I'm exhausted by it. And I think when we look at our friendships and we start to describe our friends as sisters, whilst that's all well and good, the fundamentals with friendship are that you need to have respect for each other. You need to be flexible. And trust isn't something that happens overnight. It's earned over time. In this modern age, everybody just wants to rush to the finish line and say, we're best friends and we're going to be close forever. That's just not truthful. What do you think, Azriena?
For me, that has never been my experience. And I think there's a few factors behind that. in the family. It's just me and my younger brother. So I do not have the experience of having my own sister. But what happened is because my mom had about a gazillion of them, right? I mentioned she's like one of a million. Well, she was actually one of 10 or 12. A lot of sisters. So I grew up watching all that dynamic play out with my mom and my aunts, all the circling, all the triangulation. So there's been a lot of good stuff, but there's also been a lot of unnecessarily hectic or toxic stuff. And then from all of my mom's sisters came my cousins, a lot of female cousins, and they all had sisters except for me. And I was one of the youngest as well. So I kind of watched all of this stuff play out, these family dynamics. I was very, very hyper aware from a very young age about how all of these things play out. I was also very aware that I was pretty much having to fend for myself. And when I kind of look back, I think some of my earliest maybe female betrayals came from these dynamics. So I've always kind of been a bit of, it's just me, I'm independent, it's me on my own. And then on the father side, I've also seen how the older sister in the family pulled the strings one way or another, and it created a lot of chaos in terms of the family dynamics that I witnessed when I was growing up. So I didn't want to be any part of that. So I kind of, from a really young age, I extracted myself from continuing to be too close, because this is not going to be healthy for me. But as I entered my 20s, I forged very, very strong female friendships, and some that I would always say I regarded them as sisters, but they had their own sisters actually, so I was still the friend. And eventually friendships do fizzle out. I do have some that are longer than others. 30 years, I do have them. But I believe the fact that I was moving countries for jobs and my life every 4 to 5 years. So with that came the changing of dynamic. But also because of the energetic and spiritual work that I do, I know that when I go deeper into this work, I know that there will be dynamics that will dissolve. Some relationships that you expect to last a mile with you are the one that caught you by surprise.
When you think back and just tapping into the work that you do a little bit, do you tap back into some of the past lives that you've been in? And do you have a sense of that sisterhood and what was important? And do you think those sisterhoods back in those days would have been any different to the ones today?
Not necessarily. I feel we evolve in an upward spiral. So I feel like this time around when we came back, and a lot of these dynamics, we come together maybe to clear up or clear out or neutralize the karma we had from before.
I think we're here to clear.
Because I know what is my soul path in this current reincarnation. I know there will be a lot of touch and go relationships and friendships in my past, because these were all going back from many past lives ago across all dimensions of time and space. And we come back this time to really close a lot of stories. So we kind of flit through each other's life, 2-3 years, intense relationship, sometimes really good friendships as well. And then it just dissipates. And some of them also dissipate without any toxicity. But it's almost like we never existed in each other's lives.
Isn't that shocking? It happens. I know it happens. I think it just speaks to our hearts. We go in open-hearted, wanting to have this wonderful experience with this person. And then along the way, we realize that our ideology or our belief systems are different, or we outgrow each other. And in those moments, sometimes you have that sense of destiny tapping you on the shoulder saying, that's enough now, time to move forward. And giving yourself permission to step away from an unhealthy friendship, from people who aren't showing up and respecting you in the way that you need. I'm pivoting for a second, actually. I had a sense about who we are in our tribes. And the women that I know tend to be at the head of the tribe now. Either their parents have passed, or they have dementia, or there's an illness. And let's stay with the theme today of sisterhood. So of the women in the family, the daughters stepping forward, or the granddaughters stepping forward and becoming the head of the tribe. And I'd really like to acknowledge just to all the women out there, if you are stepping into that role, we are 100% here to support you. Because you're the leader of your tribe now. You're the person who stands at the forefront of change and becomes the role model for how the tribe moves forward and whether the tribe survives. And sisterhood is incredibly important. And I would invite you to think about just the power and the importance of really showing up for yourself first. You really need to make sure you're in good shape if you're at the head of the tribe. If you're in your 40s or 50s and you are that person, you need to really honor who you are and recognize that it doesn't make you old, it makes you wise. You don't have to fall into traditional roles of being at the head of the family, and you can lead with kindness and with grace and with fortitude and strength. So another part of this is we're in these sisterhoods and we're supporting each other, and at the same time, we're all coming into our own power. And if we're all going to be sisters in a tribe that's incredibly powerful, we have to get very comfortable with sharing power and being able to allow women to shine in our group and encourage that and support that and nurture it and not feel threatened by that.
And if I may add one more ingredient to that list you have, Anita, is acceptance. And it's acceptance of oneself and acceptance of other people as well, of people's desires, of people's limitations. Especially when it comes to people who are closest to us, sometimes it's easy to forget that the perspective we share or ideology that we think we share could be further than what we think they are. And we have to accept that what they seek out or how they choose to move forward or how they choose to deal with their own situations could be entirely different from what we think they should do, from how we would attempt it. So I think there needs to be a lot of acceptance to mix in together the fortitude and all the other qualities that you said there before.
I agree. I think acceptance is so important, because when we're actually winning anything, you're winning collectively.
So yeah, exactly. We do it collaboratively, right?
Yeah.
And I think, Anita, to add one more thing, when you talked earlier about looking after ourselves and staying hydrated, taking our supplements, I feel there's one other area that should not be overlooked when we are cleaning up our energetic space, and it is the WhatsApp chat groups. The WhatsApp chat groups and the messages.
Wow. Yeah.
Honestly, there's so many different groups there, and it's actually draining our vitality. And also with the mobile phone, with WhatsApp chat groups, there's so much going on all the time. You or we are accessible all the time. And the thing is, unless we choose to mute it and then archive it, and then we don't have to see those groups, they are there and it's demanding your attention all the time. And let's be honest, some of those groups, there are maybe one or two individuals in them who are not having the best of dynamics right now, or when the energy has fizzled out and it's starting to feel like it's just not very nice when you see that thing beep, because you kind of go, oh, what now? There's a sense of dread, right? So how can we clean those up? I realized for the last 2 years, I keep those groups, but I became more and more cognizant of which groups are just wasting my time. And when I say wasting my time, I'm not referring to the people in there, but the communication that's going on in there. And with the people who we are closer with, we share mundane details. So where are you going? What's for lunch? And this and that. And then I realized actually none of this is enriching me. I don't feel rich from this exchange. Now, if you want to be able to sit down with me, have a one-on-one chat with me about the real deep things that are going in your life and that are going in my life, and we're able to hold that space for each other, we can take this forward. But if I came to a stage where I realized for some people that's not the capacity they have, they're not going to be able to do that for me, and they do not want to go too deep with me either. So I'm just like, then it's fine. Then I have decided you will not have access to me to talk about your mundane, lunch or hair salons or things like that. That's just not what I want to do anymore. It may sound quite harsh, quite cold, and I don't mean to do this in a way that's hurtful for people. Obviously, exercise discretion, judgment, and kindness, but just be aware of what's floating in your cyber arena, in your cyberspace, in your internet life, on your mobile phone. That's just zapping and taking away your energy. We're leaking it in all of this.
It's
avenues.
such a good reminder because in the Akashic Records, one of the things we do is we look at energy leaking, and it comes back to the choices that you make. You make strong, aligned choices, you don't leak energy. You're talking about the WhatsApp chat group. I think we've all got one of those groups where it started out as such a wonderful idea, particularly during COVID, and we're going to get connected and we're going to stay connected. And then at some point, it's not aligned. We're not going anywhere. We're not all moving in the same direction. And then can you give yourself permission to step out of that group? What would it mean? Can you deal with the FOMO of not being part of the conversation? I think it's a healthy thing to explore, because if you can move away from that and give yourself the permissions you need, even if it's temporary, you'll probably find that things get lighter and easier. You'll probably find that you're happier. Of course, we're not talking about our friends and our WhatsApp chat groups.
Or maybe I am. It is definitely my experience. And Anita, you mentioned FOMO earlier. There's this other acronym that came out the last few years, which is JOMO, which is the joy of missing out.
Do you know what? I have never heard that, but I love it.
Let's look at some of these cyber connections in real life. The same groups we are in, let's say 5 years ago, and you have a girl group that you constantly meet once a week or a couple of times a month. The chances of that same core group lasting 5 years down the line at the same intensity or same positivity is very, very low. That's just how we evolve, right? Some will drop out. Maybe a couple got closer than others. Maybe there's some dynamic that really didn't work out after a couple of years. And it's the same with chat groups. It will fizzle out. So I think it's a matter of us practicing our discretion and self-love in allowing ourselves to not feel guilty, to not be too overly bothered by what other people may think. So this is what I believe. We practice kindness, being respectful always, but don't feel too bad when we already know what's not working for us. It's okay to step away. As we let that dynamic or intensity dissipate with sincerity and love, it's going to help out the person on the other end as well. Because when the dynamics fizzle or when it get a bit weird or funny and a bit off, it's felt both ends. It's never just one party,
Isn't that interesting? Because I think sometimes we forget that. We think it's just us, or we forget that they're probably picking up on that and they're feeling it as well. Then the question is, what is your style of dealing with discomfort? And I know, if I'm brutally honest, mine is to freeze. And I'm working on that, ladies. I'm working on it, but freezing. Because in that moment, I didn't rehearse it. I'm not quite sure what I should say or not say. I have a really dear friend who I love very much. And she said to me, we're going to sit and rehearse it. How to handle a difficult moment with a woman that you love.
Anita, how lucky you are to have someone who would hold that space for you.
I know. Do you know what? I walked away thinking that woman just showed up for me in a way that I really hadn't expected. And she made also the experience of that practical. She gave me tools. And that's the idea of this podcast. We want to give you tools at the end of each podcast that really help you to move forward. And I think the things we've covered today are permissions, acceptance, respect, boundaries.
And JOMO.
And JOMO.
There is joy in missing out. It's legit.
I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, I think I heard this term through the younger millennials or Gen Zs, especially those who came of age through the COVID years. They are less gregarious maybe when it comes to socializing. And it seems that what's quite popular is people accepting the fact that, or reveling in the fact that they're introverts. Now, whether that's true or not, because it could also hide the fact that you just choose not to grow socially and learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable spaces. So I think it's a double-edged sword. But yes, if the option is to have the fear of missing out all the time and thinking that there are things happening or conversations happening or events happening and you're not part of it and you just need to insert yourself for the sake of knowing what's going on, it's time to reevaluate. And I think it is beautiful that people just accept the fact there is joy in missing out. There is the relief that, oh my goodness, I don't have to be part of that. And it's not from a place of judgment. It's just from a place that you have already a sense of, it's almost like a pre-discernment. You already know, you know yourself well, and you know what's not really going to work for you or what's not the best for you. So why leak your energy and invest it in that particular arena or avenue, right? And I like I said, I always believe in doing it with kindness. You know, when we erect boundaries over situations or with other people, it's important to approach it in the kindest way we possibly can. Now, whether it will be received at the level that we think we have executed it, we can't control that. We can't control other people's reactions. But what we can control is to do our best, that it came from with the best intentions in the kindest way we can possibly deliver it. What goes on the other side, I can only hope for the best. And maybe it won't be received it won't be received immediately in the way we hope it will, but maybe time will help to massage that.
I think that's really wise.
Also, what's quite interesting is that when I have girlfriends who are about 15-ish younger than me, I get to see them entering their 30s, and I get to observe the friendships they have around them. I had this younger girlfriend, and I said to her, she was approaching her 30th birthday, you are entering a very interesting phase in your life. I said, from here on, you will see that these besties that you have from 20s or your late teens, and you think we are each other's ride or die forever. I said, don't be surprised if some of them do not last a mile. These things happen. It's not like I was the bearer of doom and gloom.
I think that was a really wonderful gift to give them. It's giving them permission to know that a perfect relationship isn't one that lasts forever. It's one that shows up, gives you everything that you need, teaches you the lessons, gives you the strength to move forward, and to let it be. Have the grace to just let things end if they need to end. Don't flog it. Don't keep trying to make it work when it's not working.
Yeah, and don't beat yourself up.
That seems to make it worse, actually.
It does. And why do you want to be a glutton for punishment, putting yourself up to be rejected over and over again? At some point, honor yourself, maintain your dignity. So for me, and I'm not saying that I've got this all figured out.
Oh, I was really hoping you did.
I've got it all figured out. So here we are. I feel that for me, when it is a longer standing friendship, when it's one that has run really, really deep for a long time, and then when I get a sense, things are starting to get a little bit weird, what I do is, okay, this is how much more time I'm going to give it at a certain level of intensity. So I'll still be all out, but I'll be all out, let's say, for another 6 months or a year. But I know when to pull back and when I'm going to reduce my effort, or when am I going to reduce that access they can have to me.
Yeah, there's power in that. You said it earlier. Each time I really feel that wave of power. You said, I'm going to reduce the amount of access people have to me. That's really interesting, because that means that when you're walking into the room, you really do understand the power you bring. And then when you choose to leave that room, you're not leaving a part of yourself behind. You're leaving intact, fully present, and you're where the party is, because you'll just keep moving on, and you've got all of that joy and character and strength and wisdom. And I think people need to be comfortable with saying, actually, I'm where the joy is. So I'm giving myself permission to leave. Most people, when they're engaging, until they get to a level where they're really comfortable with themselves, they're really just trying to survive. They're surviving a conversation. That's why they get combatant. They're surviving a dynamic. That's why they get competitive. They're surviving their childhood. That's why they're not reading the room. And of course, we look at that with compassion. Everybody's in survival mode. When you get into the state that you're talking about, which is understanding your own value and strength and maintaining your own dignity, you're no longer surviving the room. You've embraced wisdom. You've stepped into a position of perspective and wisdom. There is nothing more attractive in a human than someone who's just really comfortable with who they are. They don't need to speak over you. They don't need to dominate. they can just relax into who they really are. And then when they do speak or they offer something, it's usually joyous, right? It's such a relief to hear what they've got to say because they took the time to listen to you. And that's such a gift that people give you in friendship.
And I feel that a point that is very important to highlight here is that it's not coming from a place of ego. It's not about a hierarchy and thinking I'm better than them, I'm more sorted out than them. It's not about that. Like I said, it is a sense of honoring yourself, honoring your space, and like really a sense of deeply knowing yourself and what you bring to the table. If we know that in most situations, if not every situation or dynamic that we encounter in our daily lives, we do our best to bring the best we can at the level we can, with the sincerest, clearest, purest intentions we can, then we'd have done our best. And if people do not receive it on that level, if they're not ready to receive it at that level, then that's just how it's going to be at that point in time.
Excellent. So I think we've given people food for thought. Family's family, but respect's important. Boundaries are important. Sometimes people just give and give and give, and they forget that when they do that, you create a level of expectation. And then you can't be surprised when people don't treat you well, and when people stamp all over your boundaries. It's because you're the one setting the tone for the relationship. So I would encourage, set your baseline, do it with your family. We want healthier relationship, not more codependence, not more drama. It's not entitled. It's necessary. And actually, the more you do it, the more you're showing them that you do love and appreciate them because you want them to be in your life. The number of families these days who don't speak to each other and siblings don't speak to each other, from what I understand, that's rising. I mean, it's so important to feel respected in relationships, and families don't always give room for that when you're growing up and it's rowdy and busy. But you're adults now. So if you need to set a boundary with a loved one, give yourself permission to do it.
With everyone taking responsibility for their part and their role in the dynamics that we have in our daily lives, eventually it all comes back. In a relationship that was fractured maybe for a number of years, sometimes come back together again in a much healthier way. So I think this is what we wish for our listeners today. Thank you for tuning in.
And know that we really appreciate you being here with us. And if you have any thoughts, any things you'd like to share, please hit the comments below.
With so much love and reverence for your path and for your beautiful, brave soul, this is Galactic Alchemy. We'll see you soon.